wars in Europe that had influenced Texas will continue in the late 1700s. In 1763, France and Great Britain will fight a war known as the 7 Years' War, or in American history, we always call it the French and Indian War. This war will take place on both the North American continent and in Europe, and Spain will serve as an ally of Great Britain against France. When the war came to an end, since Spain had fought on the winning side, they will receive Louisiana as part of the treaty from France. So now Spain controls all of the land all the way up to the Mississippi River. So everything west of the Mississippi River belongs to Spain. France is no longer a threat to Spain. So they're excited. They have this major area of land. So Spain says, let's see what we got. The question is, do they still need the missions and presidios in Texas? What is out there? So King Charles II, the King of Spain, will send an inspector, a man by the name of Marques de Rubi, to check it out. He'll send him to investigate. Rubi will go throughout the entire southwest of what is the present-day United States. He'll explore California, New Mexico, and Texas. In 2 years, he will travel 7,500 miles. When he returns, he will say, he'll come up with 2 proposals. The first of which is, he says, all the missions in Texas need to be closed except for the missions in San Antonio and the one at Goliad. He said all the rest, it's a waste of expenses, it's a waste of resources. He will also say that all of the settlers in East Texas need to move to San Antonio. There were about 500 people who had settled in East Texas. And de Rubi will say that this is too far, it's too hard to defend, and all these people need to move further south where San Antonio is a major city or growing into a major city, and it's closer to New Spain. Well, not everybody in East Texas is going to like that. One of the men is a guy named Gil Ibarbo, and Ibarbo is a leader in East Texas, and he's going to ask the government, after they are relocated to Santa Fe, may he please return to East Texas, to his home, to the land he had been farming. The governor in San Antonio refuses, so in 1779, Ibarbo and several others settlers will sneak illegally back into East Texas, where they will found the town of Nacogdoches, which is still there today. Meanwhile, the United States and Great Britain are now having troubles. Specifically, the United States America will declare its independence from Great Britain, will fight the American Revolution, and will win. From 1776 to 1783 is the American Revolution, and Spain will side with the United States. And so again, they will be on the winning side. So they will get more compensation. They're going to be just very well received because, again, they helped the United States and they continue to be on the winning side. Then, in 1800, more trouble will take place in Europe when Napoleon Bonaparte will become Emperor of France. And he will proceed to start conquering all of Europe, all of the continent of Europe, including Spain. And when he conquers Spain, Louisiana will revert back to the French. So all of that land that Spain had gotten will go back to the French. The French are now, again, a presence in North America and right there on the border of Texas. Well, that's going to change another time in 1803 when Thomas Jefferson, the President of the United States, will purchase Louisiana from France. Napoleon still needed money to pay for his wars in Europe. The United States was not involved in the Napoleonic Wars, and they're going to, France will sell Louisiana to the United States. So now that land changes hands again. France is finally gone from the United States area, from North America, and now it is the United States that borders with Spain there at the Texas-Louisiana border. One of the problems is, in all of this time, there had never been a clear figuring out what exactly is the border between Texas and Louisiana. So both sides are going to claim a strip of land known as the neutral ground or disputed area. Both sides are going to say this strip of land between Louisiana and Texas belongs to them, with Spain on one side and the United States on the other. And what they're going to eventually decide is, okay, it will be this neutral ground. No one's going to govern it. It's not going to belong to anybody, and we'll just leave it there. Well, since no one is governing it, no one is going to also police it. So the neutral ground is going to become a very rowdy, rough place. Lots of outlaws, lots of smugglers will move into that area because they can raid out of it, attack into Louisiana, up into the United States, or attack into Texas. And as long as they can get back to the neutral ground, no one can get them because it's neutral. No one is going to send troops into that region. And that's going to last until 1819, when Spain and the United States sign the Adams-Onis Treaty. This treaty, among other things, is going to set the Sabine River as the border between Texas and Louisiana. And the Sabine River is still today the border between Texas and Louisiana. Well, meanwhile, while all this is going on, there's a lot more Americans moving into Spanish Texas. And the Spanish aren't particularly excited about this. They don't really want Americans moving into Texas. East Texas is where most of these people are moving. Most of them are craftspeople, that they're blacksmiths or carpenters, but they're farmers, and there's traders who are trading horses, catching wild mustangs, which are wild horses, cattle, things like that. But there's another group, a group known as filibusters. A filibuster who is someone who is fighting in another country without that government's permission. And these filibusters come in and they're going to cause trouble, and Spain's going to see them as a threat. One of the filibusters is a man by the name of Philip Nolan, who is from Ireland. And he and a group of other filibusters, they've come into East Texas, and they told Spain that officially they were there trying to capture and sell wild horses. Spain, though, says that Philip Nolan is a spy for the United States. Nolan says, no, we're just here catching horses. And then in 1800, Nolan is going to lead a party of 27 men into Texas, supposedly to catch these horses. Well, Spain doesn't want him there. They asked him to leave. They try to catch him. They kind of run around East Texas. And in March of 1801, Spanish soldiers will surround Nolan's camp. They'll order him to surrender. He refuses. A fight's going to break out. They're going to start shooting at each other. And in the shooting, Philip Nolan and one of his men will be killed. The rest will be captured by the Spanish forces, and they'll be taken back to Mexico, where they will be put in prison. So while this tension is going on in Texas, there's also tension against the Spanish going on in Mexico. The colonists in New Spain become angry. They get upset about Spanish law because in New Spain you had people who had moved from Spain who lived there, but then you'd had people who had been born in New Spain, had been born in Mexico, who had lived there for by now several generations. Well, the people who were from Spain got the best jobs. They got to be in the government. And so these colonists feel that they're being excluded. They don't like that. And then in 1804, to help pay for his wars, the Spanish king will seize all of the money and property that belonged to the Spanish church. It had been independent. It was very wealthy. And he's going to take all of their land and money for himself. And so that's going to anger everybody because at the time, the Catholic Church was the church, like the main church in both Spain and in Mexico. And so that's going to lead a lot of people to start protesting, one of whom is a man by the name of Father Miguel Hidalgo y Castillo, who is a priest in Mexico. And on September 16th, 1810, he is going to issue a speech known as the Grito de Delores, or the Cry of Pain. And he is going to call for a rebellion against Spain. And he's going to lead a group of Native Americans, of mestizos, of Mexican citizens, against Spain to try to get Mexico independent. As a result, September 16th, 1810 is known as Dia 16. It is Mexican Independence Day. That is the day that Mexico recognizes its independence from Spain. And he's going to lead a fight. People are going to flock to him. They're going to start an army. He's going to fight the Spanish. But eventually, at one battle, Father Miguel Hidalgo y Castillo will be captured. And the Spanish will execute him, thinking that if they kill the leader, that'll end the war. But instead, that makes him a martyr, someone who dies for a cause. And more people start rebelling. The rebellion keeps going. And Mexico is going to look for help. A man by the name of Jose Bernardo Gutierrez de Lara in 1811 will go to the United States and he'll ask for help. He'll go around, he'll ask the U.S. government. The U.S. government will refuse because they don't want to get involved. But he'll start appealing to private citizens, and he'll get men who'll want to come and fight with him. He'll raise money, he'll collect supplies. One of the people that Gutierrez de Lara will attract is a man by the name of Augustus McGee, who was a U.S. Army officer. And McGee will quit the U.S. Army to join Gutierrez's forces and to go back and help fight for Mexican independence from Spain. They will call themselves the Republican Army of the North because they're coming from Texas. And this Gutierrez-McGee expedition, their soldiers will consist of Tejanos, Native Americans, and then white filibusters who were also in Texas. And in August of 1812, they will enter Texas and they will capture the city of Nacogdoches. They'll keep marching south, and by November, they'll have captured Goliad. There, they will have made a significant path through Texas. They will come into conflict at Goliad with a large Spanish army that will surround the Gutierrez-McGee expedition, and it will lay siege to the city of Goliad for 3 months. During that time, McGee will get sick and he'll die, but a man by the name of Samuel Kemper will take command. Then in February, the Spanish have gotten tired of laying siege. They've worn out. Laying siege is where you surround somebody and you don't let anyone in or out. You don't let supplies in or out. And the Spanish will get tired of it and they'll give up and they'll leave and they'll retreat to San Antonio. So Kemper's men are excited and they'll chase the Spanish. Since the Spanish are leaving, they'll chase them to San Antonio. Kemper's men will then beat the Spanish army and they will capture San Antonio. And they will then declare Texas an independent country. This won't last, though. This Republican Army of the North, all of the different people in it now think they should be the leader of this new country. They start arguing about what the government should be shaped like. And as they argue that in August, there's going to be another battle. They're going to fight Spanish troops at what's known as the Battle of Medina at the Medina River. Here, the Spanish are going to defeat the rebels. Most of the rebels are killed in battle, and the rest will surrender, and the Spanish army will then kill all of the prisoners. And so the Republican Army of the North will be pretty much wiped out. They will then, to send a message to the Texans to not rebel again, that you don't get to be your own country, the Spanish soldiers will march into San Antonio and will kill the colonists who had helped the Republican Army. So the remaining colonists in Goliad and Nacogdoches are going to flee to the United States. So they're going to run away, fearing for their lives. This is going to create bad feelings between the Texans and the Spanish army, the Spanish government. It's also going to cause other people to want to help the Texans. One group who will get involved are pirates. Pirates in Texas will be operating out of Galveston Island, just south of Houston there. One of these, Louis Michel Henry, is a French pirate. He's going to help the rebels. He's going to set up several bases, and he's going to serve as sort of a de facto navy helping the Mexican revolutionaries fighting the Spanish. Another one who's very famous and important in Texas is a man by the name of Jean Lafitte. Lafitte is also a French pirate. He will take over Galveston, and he will continue to attack Spanish ships in an effort to aid Mexico. And Lafitte will last for several years, even after Spain is defeated. Lafitte is still going to be operating out of Galveston. Meanwhile, the French are going to move back into Texas. They're going to try in 1818, because of all the turmoil, to set up some forts on the Trinity River, but will get pushed back by the Spanish. Then the last of the filibusters will come into Texas. It's a man by the name of James Long, and he will lead 300 men in 1819 into East Texas, and he'll capture the city of Nacogdoches. Long will then travel south to Galveston to try to get Lafitte to help him. Lafitte will tell him, no, you can't win. We saw what happened last time to the filibusters. While Long is away in Galveston, Spanish troops will attack Nacogdoches, and they will defeat Long's men. So now Long's army is defeated, and he is out in the middle of nowhere between Galveston and Nacogdoches. So he'll take off. He'll try to run away to New Orleans, where he can recruit more men to fight. He will get more men. He'll come back. This time he'll attack the city of Goliad, and he's defeated and captured. When he's captured, he's then taken back to Mexico, where James Long is executed as a traitor for trying to rebel against Spain. And with his death ends the filibuster movement in Texas. But that doesn't end the fighting against Spain. In 1820, a new rebellion will take place actually in Spain. Military leaders will be upset about all of this, about the king and how he is acting as a complete ruler. He is giving no power, and so the army, the leaders in the army in Spain will rise up, and they'll have a rebellion where they try to force the king to sign a constitution. So the fighting back in Spain, the king's worried about staying king, not just keeping his land in Mexico. That's going to distract him, and it's going to allow the Mexican army a chance. With their new leader, a man by the name of Augustine de Iturbide, he's going to lead the Mexican army, and he's going to issue a 3-part plan for government. He says that when this war is over, Mexico is going to be an independent country. That's the first part of his plan. His second part of his plan is that all Mexican people will have equal rights, regardless of your ethnicity, where you were born. If you're Spanish, if you're Mexican, if you're mestizo, everyone's going to have equal rights. And he confirms that Mexico will stay a Catholic country, that it confirms their devotion to the Catholic Church. So now the church is going to support him, and that's going to attract people who are maybe nervous about losing the Catholic Church. So he has the blessing of the church too, and is going to be successful. He's going to win, and in August 24th, 1821, Spain is going to sign the Treaty of Cordoba with Mexico, which makes Mexico now an independent country. But with Spain gone, they still have a legacy. This is the end of our second flag in Texas history, of the 6 flags of Texas, and the start of the third one, which is the Mexican flag, which is Mexico being in charge of Texas. So their impact, the Spanish legacy, one of which is how people did their work. It's through Spain that we see the rise of the Texas cattle ranches. We also see a lot of items that cowboys used came from this Spanish legacy. The chaps that were worn to protect the legs against the scrub brush, the lariat that was used to lasso the horses, the wide-brimmed hat that we call the cowboy hat was the sombrero that came from Spain to protect against the sun. All of these are Spanish techniques. The vaquero, which is the term for cowboy that we use for cowboy now, that the vaquero, the working the cows while on horseback, that is a Spanish legacy. And then just the whole Texas Longhorn, the cow, comes from Spain, going back to Coronado and the other Spanish explorers, and then with the missions, when the expedition ended or when the mission closed, they would just turn all their cows and horses loose. And these cows would then, over time, develop the ability to live in the area. So the Texas Longhorn, it's a smaller cow, but it's hardy, it's tough, and it could survive in Texas. And so that comes from the Spanish. We also see the Spanish legacy in town names and place names. Places like San Antonio, El Paso, Del Rio were all cities that date back to the Spanish period. The names we use for physical features, such as the Rio Grande, the Guadalupe Mountains, the Concho River, the Brazos River, all of these are, again, Spanish names that have continued. And then finally, one of the big legacies of Spain and Texas is what's known as the El Camino Real. This means the Royal Highway. This was a road that was built from Laredo all the way to Nacogdoches, like spanning the width at the time of Texas, as a way to improve trade. It's also known as the Old San Antonio Road. But the El Camino Real is going to be a major trade route that's going to help connect Nacogdoches with San Antonio with Laredo and then down into Mexico. So it's going to allow trade and allow Texas to develop. But now with Spain gone, now Mexico is in charge, and that's going to put a new shift on Texas history. It's going to have a new influence and an impact on the history of Texas as it develops.